Hello, and welcome to Pacific Mammal Research's Marine Mammal Highlight Series. We are a research and education nonprofit studying marine mammals in the Salish Sea off Washington State. In this series, you will learn about different marine mammals as we discuss the interesting facts about each species and debate which one we think is the best. Of course, we think all marine mammals are awesome. This is just our way to geek out, share some information, and have some fun. We hope you enjoy this series, and if you want to hear about a particular marine mammal, let us know in the comments. And without further ado, all right, welcome to our Marine Mammal Highlight series. This is our second one. We're going to be doing seals and sea lions today, otherwise known as pinnipeds. Pinniped means feather or winged foot because they have flippers instead of feet. My name is Cindy Elliser.
I am Kat McKeever, and you just get my voice today because internet is being a problem.
And I'm Trevor Deary.
Right, and we are all part of Pacific Mammal Research. So we're going to have some fun today and kind of discuss which one of the pinnipeds that we've chosen we think is the coolest. So I'm going to be talking about the leopard seal.
I will be talking about the Baikal seal.
And I'll be doing the elephant seal.
Cool. So we're going to start off with the leopard seal and then probably jump to the elephant seal maybe, or I guess we went the other way around last time.
Well, I mean, whichever would work if it makes more sense for overlap to do the elephant seal.
Yeah, there's some link between the leopard seal and the southern elephant seal, so it just depends on the
why don't we do that?
Section.
Why don't we do that and then I'll go last?
Okay, that's cool because the Baikal seal, I was like, what?
I know, it's so exciting.
Okay, so the leopard seal, the Latin name is Hydruga leptonix, which is a mouthful. But what that means is water worker and small clawed, which is interesting.
Oh.
Now they live, so it was funny, they live like, the first thing I found was 12 to 15 years, but then everywhere else I found was up to 25 years was the average. So
interesting.
they have a pretty good long life, although they're pretty far out there. They live in the Antarctic, so they're not really bothered by a lot of things. So perhaps that helps their longevity. What I found very interesting, so they have, the reason why they're called the leopard seal is because they have a black spotted coat, except it looks like a leopard, it's just gray instead of golden, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of seals have been hunted close to extinction because of their pelts, right, to get their fur.
Right.
But they haven't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Even though they have a really cool coat, but I guess probably because they live in such a far away place.
Right, and they're pretty powerful. It might be hard to catch them too.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll talk about it.
Yeah, if you look at their face, you would want to run the other way.
Yep.
So they're terrifying. So leopard seals, the way that their faces are, the way their nostrils are, and they don't really have like a forehead, it looks like a reptile. It looks like there's a snake on a seal's head, on a seal's body. Mm-hmm. It's really, and they have really big sharp teeth, really creepy. Their coats are very beautiful, but I think their faces are just not.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why that orientation is the way that it is in terms of their nostrils being like right up on the top of their nose bridge?
Well, so most seals have their noses are, up or a little bit more, but is it because of where they are with the ice? Because I actually didn't.
I think it's basically so that they can poke their head up just like through a tiny little air hole in the ice and get a breath rather than trying to have to fit their whole head up to get a full breath of air. The way that their noses are, they can just poke the nose up. Because if you had more like a harbor seal where you had that kind of like larger forehead and then curved down, you couldn't get your nose up. Your head would get in the way.
That's true. They could kind of find a tiny little ice crack.
Right. So it's kind of an adaptation to where they live.
Yeah. And they live, like I said, the Antarctic and subantarctic waters. They're basically coastal. They don't go very far offshore. They only dive for about 15 minutes. That's their longest dive time because they're not really going in after anything that's super deep. But they will go up to, they've gone up to New Zealand, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But they've been seen in South Africa, the southern tip of South Africa, and a few other places north of the Antarctic, but fairly south in the world. So they eat. They can get up to 1,000 pounds, and they're about 10 feet long. So they're pretty big, and they got a big reptilian head, and it's really creepy looking. But they're very fierce predators. And again, like you said, if you look at their face, you're like, okay, thanks for coming to the party. So they have canine teeth for grasping large prey, and then they have trilobulated teeth for filtering krill. So the krill is what large baleen whales eat, right? And very, very small. So I find it very interesting that they eat both large prey, like regular predators, and then they also are filter feeders.
Right. That has to be one of the most diverse foraging methods amongst pinnipeds.
Yeah, and they're the only ones that eat warm-blooded animals.
Right.
All the other seals eat fish and squid and things like that. So really kind of interesting. And so they are really, really good predators. They will lay by the ice shelf and wait for penguins to jump in the water and then grab them really quickly. So it puts a whole nother spin on being a penguin and being like, I'm going for a dip, or I'm going to go catch my food. Oh, I might be grabbed by a leopard seal in the moment. They'll also grab seabirds from below the surface too. And I found a story, they were saying that they'll play cat and mouse games with the penguins.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, well, they'll cut off their route back to shore.
Wow.
And we don't know why. They're just like, haha, I can do this and you can't get back.
And does that always result in a capture attempt, or?
They didn't explain that part, but they were theorizing that it would be some kind of play, or like learning how to
learning behavior, yeah.
Right, learning how to forage, learning how to, deal with the slippery penguins.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But when they grab the penguin, they take it and then they shake it back and forth to basically cleanse it. So they rip it until the skin falls off.
Wow.
Yeah. They're pretty nuts.
Kind of like a dog, almost. Like a dog will just shake something to death.
Just shake back and forth.
Very similar, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're really crazy. But there's only been one human and leopard seal fatality, like the leopard seal killed a human. So despite the fact that they're seemingly very fierce, that doesn't really, they're not that aggressive. That one was a researcher was snorkeling in the Antarctic, which blows my mind.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I hadn't heard this story, but like, I'm like, I mean, I guess you could snorkel with the wetsuit on, but okay, in the Antarctic. But yeah, she was saying, and this leopard seal grabbed her and took her down, and she drowned, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that's the only one. So then there was Paul Nicklin, who's a very famous photographer, and he's done some amazing stuff. But I remember this story. He was out and filming in the Antarctic, and this female leopard seal came up and kept bringing him live and dead penguins.
Oh my gosh!
Here, you look famished. You are not a good predator. Here's some food for you. Please eat.
That's amazing.
So, I'm sure we just don't know a lot about these guys because they live in such a remote area.
Sure.
What was some of the things? Oh, the only predators they have are killer whales that they know of, and then they theorize that sharks will eat them as well. Some of the larger ones there. They can swim up to 25 miles an hour.
Wow, so that's really fast.
Yeah, so they can jump out of the water and grab prey at the edge of the ice.
They can launch themselves onto the ice pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
As if the reptilian head wasn't scary enough when it's just standing there.
Right, torpedo coming out of the water.
Imagine being a penguin and be like, oh my god, no.
Right? Wow, that's so cool.
They actually sing. It's almost like humpback whales. They sing, they hang upside down and rock side to side in the water. The males do.
Wow. Is that like attracting females?
They think so. Again, they don't really know too much, but yeah, likely breeding behavior.
Crazy.
So I was like, well, that's cool.
Seals are way more vocal underwater than I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, a lot of species are more so underwater than they are on land, except for sea lions, of course, California sea lions, loud everywhere. But yeah, with harbor seals too, they're more likely to call underwater than they are above water, which is interesting. They mate in the water, unlike other Antarctic seals, but they pup and nurse on the ice. So those are the other thing is their front flippers are really long compared to other seals. So most seals have the really short, stubby fore flippers, but they have longer ones, almost similar, not quite as long as sea lions, but to be able to swim up to 25 miles an hour underwater.
Yeah.
Makes
sense.
Very smoothly.
Do you want to quickly, just so everyone knows what we're talking about in terms of seal versus sea lion, do you want to just quickly describe the difference between a true seal and a sea lion?
Sure. So it was the Baikal seal is
Baikal seal is a seal.
Is a seal. Okay, so today we're talking all about true seals. So there's eared seals and true seals. So basically the biggest difference is that true seals don't have outer ear flaps. They have just a hole on the sides of their heads. It's their ear. But the sea lions and fur seals, I know it's confusing, have the outer ear flap. The other difference is that sea lions and fur seals can tuck their hind legs underneath them, or their hind flippers, and walk on land, whereas seals do kind
of an
flail
inchworm
around. Yeah, they can't do that. They just kind of do the worm, as my son would say.
So I just wanted to make that distinction, just because when talking about the flippers and stuff, one of the things with sea lions and fur seals, because they can tuck their hips under and kind of prop themselves up on their front flippers, they actually will use those to propel themselves along. So that's also a thing with the flipper size. If the phocids, the true seals, don't do that. So that's another reason why they have like the shorter
I always think
flippers. They don't have to use it for propulsion on land.
Yeah, I always think of the true seals as like T-Rexes. They have tiny little hands that they can't really do anything with.
They can use them to swim when they're underwater, but yeah, on land it looks pretty ridiculous. So okay, cool. Just wanted to make that.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So my last thing about the leopard seals, which is I think one of the funniest stories that have come out of marine mammal research, is the jump drive.
Oh yeah.
Story. So they collect leopard seal scat, so poop, right? Lots of us researchers like to collect poop because you can tell a lot about an animal from their poop. So they have volunteers that go out and collect poop when they see it on New Zealand, because there is a group or a certain amount of leopard seals that are actually resident to New Zealand. And that's just come out this last couple of years. Our friend and colleague, Dr. Krista Hutman, has basically pioneered this research there and showed that through photo ID that these leopard seals are living in New Zealand year round, not just coming up during this certain time of year. So they're trying to learn more about them. They're doing photo ID and they're asking people to pick up their scat. So they picked up a scat in 2017. Someone sent it in and they put it in the freezer because, we oftentimes don't get to stuff right away when with so much stuff we have to research. So it was unfrozen in 2019 and they found a USB stick in the poop. And it was embedded in the poop. So it wasn't like you picked it up with the poop, it was in the poop. Yeah. And so they were like, well, I don't know. And they took it out and they cleaned it up and they put it in and it worked. It had been eaten by a leopard seal, pooped out, frozen for almost 2 years, and still worked.
So whatever brand of USB stick, buy that one apparently, because it's really hardy.
That should be put on their, advertising. And so they put it on social media. They had a bunch of pictures of somebody's vacation, and within a day they found out who it was and was able to send their USB stick back. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's why leopard seals are cool, because they have really reptilian heads and they look very scary, and they eat USB sticks, which is also not a good thing because they're eating plastic. This is my son Ben. So there are, even in the Antarctic and down there, they're getting plastic in them. So that's the other side of that story.
True, but at least he pooped it out.
Right. Yeah. And so if we want to link to the elephant seals, so the leopard seal is the second largest seal, and the largest one is
the southern elephant seal. I mean, there's technically 2 species of elephant seals, which I actually kind of just recently found out, but like the northern versus southern hemisphere species, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I think the southern, I'll just kind of like group the 2 species as one.
Yeah, they're really similar. They're just ones in the north and ones in the south.
Basically size is different. I think the southern range is primarily Antarctica, and we'll kind of do similar sightings with the leopard seal that go up to New Zealand and I think parts of South America, versus the northern populations pretty much more spread out from Alaska all the way down to Mexico.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but then more concentrated in California for breeding.
Gotcha.
So obviously we have the northern species up here. But honestly, the coolest part of them is just the extremes that they exhibit compared to every other seals based on like size, like their diving, their sexual dimorphism.
They're kind of like the Guinness World Record holders of most of the marine mammal stats, I think, for like diving and distance and all this kind of stuff. It's like these guys are extremophiles.
Yeah. They're the largest. They're up to like 4,000 pounds, 4,400 pounds, something like that.
They recorded a female going 7,800 feet underwater.
Oh my gosh.
Antarctica.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I think they like are really adapted for deep dives too. I was reading about their spleen and how they basically like compress and they can slowly dissipate their oxygen from the red blood cells to the body as they dive.
Right.
So they can
Makes it last
walk
longer.
For an hour. Yeah. But yeah, just the sexual dimorphism too is pretty crazy.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about the males.
Yeah. So females will get up to, I think, around 1,000 pounds, maybe a little more in special cases. But then the males, I know the southern populations can get up to like 8,000 or 9,000 pounds.
Oh, they're that big?
Yeah.
Because like the northern elephant seals is like 4,500, like 4,400, something like that.
But the southern are huge.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Imagine again, these are seals, so they can't really walk on land. So it's like 8,000 pounds of just like bleh.
Have you seen the video of the elephant seal in New Zealand just slamming the truck?
No.
Oh my gosh.
It's the size of the truck and just like ramming the truck with its stomach.
I'd put my money on the elephant seal. I think the truck's
I'd be terrified to be in that vehicle.
Apparently it's a known like the one we have, but it was a nuisance.
That's crazy.
Let's see, what else do they?
Well, let's talk about the male, the trunk, why they're called elephant seals.
Yeah. I think that's mainly just used for sounds, like for grunts and basically sexual display.
It's basically like a big megaphone.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, like it amplifies the sound, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got, if you haven't seen them, we should link to, actually I was thinking that we could link to some pictures and stuff like that within the video here, so you guys can have a visual while we're talking about them. But yeah, you'll see it's got like this crazy, it looks kind of like an elephant trunk, the males having kind of coming out of the front of where their nose would be, that's part of their nose.
I think they can inflate it a bit as well.
Yes.
They can, yeah, it's an inflatable one.
Yeah.
And the females don't have it. So the females look, I think they're pretty, but then the males are good looking.
Manly looking? I don't know. What would you say? Sure, it's attractive if you're an elephant seal.
Yeah.
The thing about them too is that they are hardly ever on land, really. I think they're really only on land to molt and breed. But I think I saw 80% of the time of their lives are like out in the open ocean.
Yeah, I've read like 8 to 9 months at sea, and they come out to like the molting takes molting is when they lose their fur. But they actually go through a catastrophic molt, which means they lose their upper layer of skin. So it literally looks like they're falling apart.
Something like that,
yeah. So it takes that takes at least 6 weeks. So and then they got to mate and stuff like that. So yeah, probably about 2-3 months that they're near land, and otherwise they're like bye bye.
And once mom has a pup too, she doesn't stay around very long. I think they only keep their pups for around 4 weeks. Yeah,
and so it's the same thing with the leopard seals. The lactation was a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw their fat is, or their milk is 50% fat after a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So they grow quickly.
The colder seals tend to have much shorter lactation times. I forgot which seal it is, but there's one that it lactates for like it's 3 days.
Right. I mean,
like,
right. And it's like,
massive
your milk has to be.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, here you go. Here's like 80% milk fat, and you're on your way.
Enjoy.
I wish we had more of them here. I mean, we have the 4, the ones that the nuisance individuals that we have here.
The nuisance family. Yeah, with the Ellie and her offspring.
Elsie, Ellison, and Eloise, I think is the other one.
Eloise is it's Ellie, and then Ellison is the oldest male son, and then there's Elsie May, who comes up to our study area. And then the new baby, Eloise, who got bit by a coyote, but I think is doing okay.
Yeah, she's doing better.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people watching this know who Elsie is too.
Yeah. Yeah, Elsie Mae likes people a little bit too much. She's crashed some weddings and a few other things.
They're obviously they're very curious.
Yeah, it's the only one or the first one to pup. Ellie is the first one to pup on Whidbey in decades. I mean, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I think that somebody had done it before, but
I just saw too that there's this very really small breeding population out by Race Rocks.
Oh, right.
I thought it was Steller sea lions, but I guess they have like documented individuals out there. That
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I guess that makes sense. I was like, where is she going to find her man?
Yeah, it must be there maybe.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I've only seen the one other elephant seal in Washington. That was a couple years ago. A male swimming in the water, but that was it.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Yeah, they're the only elephant seals I've ever seen here. It's like, and all on the posters of like, what's in the Salish Sea? It shows elephant seals, but I'm like, okay, where?
Yeah.
Never see them.
Same one says like sperm whale too. Like,
Yeah. Well, there was that one a couple years ago. The juvenile. It was like, I have no idea where I am. Cool. Yeah. So elephant seals are pretty neat. They like you said, as Kat said, extremophiles. Very
right.
Extreme lives. Okay, well, so due to some technical difficulties, we're here on another day to finish up our talk. This is why we all look different and why there's a baby in the picture. Kat, we talked about the leopard seal and the elephant seal, and so now, Kat, you're going to talk about the
Baikal seal.
Baikal.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the weirder seals that a lot of people may not have heard of. So basically, the Baikal seal is the world's only freshwater seal. So all other seals basically live in the ocean or marine environments. The only other exceptions are, I guess there are a couple of subpopulations of ringed seal, which I'll get to why that's relevant.
Really?
They can exist in freshwater. I think they actually go back and forth.
Oh.
And I know that there are other phocids that can go up into like rivers and estuaries for a short period of time, but they don't live there. They'll just go up there to like chase food up there and then come back.
Right. Is the Baikal, is that one that it got basically trapped there, and so then they?
That's what they think. So basically, yeah, Lake Baikal is in kind of it's in like the Russian part of Siberia. So it's just north of Mongolia. We'll have a map on here for your viewing pleasure, so you can actually see where that is. But it's one of the lakes that you actually may have heard of because it's pretty weird. It's the world's largest lake by volume and the deepest lake. So it is, I think at the maximum depth, it's over 1,600 meters deep, which is like 5,500 feet deep at its deepest point.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little deep.
And so basically it's a big crescent shape. And it was actually an ancient rift valley that got flooded basically, which is partly why they think it's so deep, is that it was in fact at some point like a valley. And it's also apparently one of the clearest lakes in the world. So its visibility is like incredible and is very rich in oxygen, which is pretty cool. So because it has such a high oxygen content and the clarity of the water means that sunlight can penetrate fairly deep down into the water, it's actually a really, really rich biodiverse lake, and supports a really diverse ecosystem. So the seals, they're Baikal seals, cuttingly named because they live in Lake Baikal. They're thought to be ancestors of ringed seals. So that's why they think there may be some crossover with maybe those subpopulations of ring seals who can also survive in right, exactly. And they were thought that they reached Lake Baikal by traveling up river systems and drainage systems that ran from the lake to the Arctic Ocean during the Pleistocene era, and then basically got trapped.
Okay.
They're fairly small,
I'm sorry?
They're fairly small.
Yeah, they're a pretty, I mean, wait till you see the pictures, you guys. They're so cute. They're pretty round because they're very blubber.
I think the ring seal is the smallest.
I was gonna say, I think I'd have to look that up.
I'm pretty sure it is, because I think I remember putting that in a.
I know they're one of the smallest ones, but they're pretty fat, so I'm not sure if they would count as the actual smallest. But basically, these guys are at this point in time, they are now confined to the lake. They can get a little way up some of the tributaries of the lake, but other than that, that's the only place that they're found in the world.
Yeah, the ring seal is the smallest.
Okay, gotcha.
And
so this
and then the other one on there, like when you look it up, the Baikal Seals comes up as one of the first things.
Okay,
It's one
so
of the
again,
smallest,
kind of
but,
another link to them being related, I guess. So what I thought was really interesting is that it seems like they sort of have specific niches within the lake system that they utilize, which is really cool. So they're primarily found in the north and central parts of the lake, and it said that they'll kind of do a migration towards the south because the lake does get covered in ice because it's in Siberia. So that gets covered in ice over the winter season, and so they will kind of migrate south as the ice accumulates. But I just thought that was really interesting. And then they also it seems like they will segregate spatially based on age. So you find more full-grown adults in the north and more juveniles and young kind of farther south. Which I guess kind of makes sense in terms of temperature, but is also just kind of fascinating to me. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, you don't always hear, like, there's usually age segregation, but it's not generally geographic, it's social.
Right. And especially within a lake system, like that's really, I mean, that's kind of unique anyway, but it just, I don't know, I thought.
Well, because I was thinking about that with being the biggest lake, and from, us in the US, you think of the Great Lakes, right? And how big, like Lake Michigan and Superior and all them are.
Well, that's the thing. So it's not necessarily the biggest spatially, it's in terms of water volume and depth. So it's not like the longest, it's not the widest, it's not any of that stuff.
But
it's like literally.
It's still gonna be pretty big though. But the point was that like in Lake Michigan, it's almost like being out in open water because
True, yeah.
and it's very dangerous because there's wind. It acts like an ocean rather than a lake, and so
if it's true.
Yeah, that if it is fairly big, then you could have differences in temperature and ice cover and all that stuff on a lake, which you wouldn't normally think of because you don't think of lakes as being that big. But when
right, and again, I think in this case, instead of being distance of the lake, it would be more like the depth differences, presumably that would cause that difference in temperature. And just again, farther south you get, the warmer generally it would be. Fun fact though, the lake itself contains, like volume wise, contains more water than all the Great Lakes combined.
Really?
Since you mentioned the Great Lakes. Yeah. So, you also get a geography lesson today, folks. So some more stuff about the seals. So they predominantly feed on pelagic fish found in the lake. And they actually have
pelagic means like open water.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And they have really big eyes. So basically they think that's just,
what big eyes you have.
They're just ridiculous. Like they're like these big, round, huge eyed, like they look like cartoon seals. I mean, they're adorable. But they think that they have enlarged eyes to forage for fish deeper in the lake because again, there's great water clarity. So they actually can see far, at depth. Right. But they think that they've evolved these larger eyes to do that.
Do you know if they have like a substantial more or like a larger amount of rods than cones? That was something in the elephant seal too. The elephant seal has an absurd amount of rods because they're so deep, searching for like potential bioluminescence.
So they only need the black and because the rods are black and white. Black and white.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything about that, but that might be true. I don't know. I didn't see anything about. That's really cool though.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like, if you're going really deep, you really have no need for color.
Right, but I mean, again, I guess because in the lake, then the water clarity is so good, light does penetrate farther than one may think. In an ocean system at the same depth.
I guess I'd be surprised that there's much bioluminescence in the lake too, versus
right. Yeah, possibly. Very cool though. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. So predominantly, like I said, they mostly feed on fish, and they do actually spend most of their time underwater foraging. So that's kind of their main activity state. It seems like. Females give birth to their young in layers that they will carve out of the snow and ice. So that's usually around kind of like mid-February-ish. And so there's still a bunch of ice cover basically, so they can carve enough space out of there to kind of be on land to have the pups. And that will give them protection too from things like eagles and wolves and that type of thing that are native to that area and are probably their biggest threats. So again, they have slightly different threats than marine mammals would to some degree, because you're not talking about like orcas going after them, which is one of the main predators of seals and marine mammals. And also, another fun fact, they have one of the highest rates of having twins of any pinniped.
Oh.
So it's up to 4% of births are twins that survive.
Wow. Because I mean, in general, twins in marine mammals is fairly rare because it's just that it's very taxing to have a baby and have it survive. So to have two of them at the same time is pretty not going to happen. So
yeah. So I mean, it's still a small percentage, but compared to all other pinnipeds, that's actually pretty high.
Yeah, I would say 4% is pretty high comparatively.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
Well, I mean, I wonder, because they have less. It's a little bit less stressful because they're isolated and they don't have the open ocean to deal with, maybe?
I guess so. I mean, just in terms of
Predators?
I guess like the buffeting and the conditions, I mean, aside from the freezing temperatures, the conditions that the pups would have to be out in, you're not talking about, huge waves crashing around you and stuff like that. It would probably be easier to swim in the lake itself. But they do, I mean, oh, go ahead.
Do you remember, sorry, I'll let you finish your thought after this, but do you know what their main source of food was, like the species-wise of fish?
Species of fish? Most of the ones that I was seeing had just pelagic fish listed, but
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember one of my classmates did their senior project on the seal, and they were actually seeing how overfishing is affecting their population in the lake.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
Well,
can't remember what species it was, but I think they did see that the population was going down due to overfishing.
Yeah, I could see that. So that is one of the main things that so let's see, the main species of fish in Lake Baikal are the ones that are sought by anglers include black grayling, European perch, pike, bullhead, sturgeon. So I can let you know on that actually. That like I said, yeah, they were kind of just specifically like, oh, various species of fish. But yeah, so that is, I mean, one of the main threats to this specific seal are people, basically. So obviously, because they live in a lake and they're trapped, they have been hunted quite consistently throughout time, and especially in those more northerly parts of the world. A lot of times seals are hunted for their pelts, for food. They'll use the blubber for lamps and oil and stuff like that. So that's consistently been one of their main predators is people. The other main thing that these guys have a problem with is Morbillivirus, which is found in many pinniped populations around the world. But for these guys, because they are in close proximity to canine species, infections were likely due to canine distemper virus outbreak in the terrestrial mammals in the area, that then was spread to the seals, which then it becomes phocine distemper virus.
Yeah, anytime you have marine mammals close to domesticated animals, you have the possibility of these zoonotic diseases where they can jump species. And that's, correct, like you said, that sort of phocine distemper virus came from.
Yeah, and does canine distemper virus, did that also affect wild canines, or is it only domesticated ones?
I don't know.
Like, could that come from wolves?
It's a good question. I would assume it could, because they're still relatively similar. They're your descendants.
And they would also be in contact with domestic dogs, so.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, either way, these guys are one of the
species got climate change, right?
Yeah, and then climate change, obviously. So so basically the Morbillivirus and distemper virus are two of the main causes of death of these guys hunting. And then basically like all Arctic species and more northern latitudes, climate change is a huge impact, and especially for these guys because of the lake system itself. It is deep, so the temperature increase as as the area warms, as the weather patterns change. The temperature increase in the lake may actually not be as drastic because it is so deep that cold water at depth is still present.
Right.
But you are talking about at least probably the top 2 meters to 3 meters getting quite a bit higher, and then obviously like ice coverage is going to change drastically. So for the females, especially because they build these layers to protect themselves and their young when they're pupping, if you don't have ice coverage to build a layer in, your you're basically just having to then pup in the open, and then eagles and hawks and wolves and other canines could very easily come and snatch your babies away.
Right. And especially because seals,
and or
they
even
have
nothing to build.
Yeah, and seals, because they still generally feed while they're nursing, they have to leave the pups before they can swim on land. So if they're just open, then it's a smorgasbord for other animals.
Yeah. And it is interesting too with these guys with the people aspect of this, because they do have both subsistence and commercial hunting that's allowed in the area, but then you also get poaching. So people who are doing it, even though it's legal, they are doing it under the radar and taking more than you're allowed to. So yeah. So, but like I said, I mean, they're such a cool little critter, and they're absolutely adorable. So, I mean,
well, and what I found was interesting too is that since they're related to the ring seal, is the evolutionary part of it, where so the ring seal can go into fresh water, which means they had the the genes in their DNA, the ability to do that. And so when that population got stuck, then it could survive. But if that had happened to another seal, they may have just completely
died off.
They had they would have had to have that gene, or some number of genes that allows them to thrive and survive in fresh water. So it's kind of lucky that it happened to them.
So yeah, basically the Baikal seal is really weird and very cool. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, there are other populations of pinnipeds that can be in fresh water, but the Baikal seal is the only one in the world that only lives in fresh water, has no exposure to the marine environment whatsoever.
Yeah, like so we have seals and sea lions out here that they will see them up the river sometimes trying to go get fish.
Exactly.
And stuff, but they don't.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean they can be in
the Columbia. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can be in rivers, and it doesn't, they're fine, but they obviously don't live there. So yeah, so that's my seal.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we've got the cool Baikal seal who lives only in fresh water, which is weird. And then we have the elephant seals who are the extremophiles that can do all the crazy stuff and hold all the records. And then we have the leopard seal, which is just scary looking like a reptile.
Creepy.
And creepy.
Yep. And kind of an evolutionary throwback.
Right, exactly. Like you throw back to the old days, the OG, and and can eat jump drives and have them survive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They're all
so like I said,
awesome
we're going to have pictures of all of those guys on here for you to look at, so you can see what we're talking about while we're talking about them and have a cool visual. And the other thing is we also will be doing, and we have the first one up from our first marine mammal highlight series on, we have Cindy's Choice Narwhals. We have a blog post about each of our animals too. So that will give you a little bit more in-depth reading about each of them. Obviously, we just have a short period of time here to talk about them all. But if you want to know more and read in more detail, check out our website, www.pacmam.org. And all of our blog posts are on there. So you can read more about all of these animals on there.
Right. So you can find us here on YouTube. You can also listen to us on our podcast, which you can go to anchor.com and find all the different places that you can find our podcasts, which is this, just without video.
And then it's just called the Pac-Man Podcast, just so you know.
So you can find it. Cool. All right. Well, we'll be excited to get a couple new cetacean species or pinniped species. Not sure which one we're going to do next time, but we'll find some cool ones to talk about, and we will see you then, or you'll see us
hopefully
then.
with less technical issues next time.
Yes. The weather does not like the internet connections here. It's all right. Well, that's it. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
This was brought to you by Pacific Mammal Research, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Each species we discuss has their own write-up in our blog. Head to our website, www.pacmam.org, that's PACMAM.org, to check it out. Also, help us continue providing fun and educational content like this by donating today. Your help is how we can continue to do our work and share it with you. Thanks.